For years, Florida leaders, realtors, and builders repeated the same message. The market is strong. Insurance is stabilizing. People are still moving here. But 2026 changes everything, and the helmets are finally coming off. Insurance companies are abandoning entire regions. Condo towers are handing out six-figure assessments. Homes in so-called safe counties are sitting unsold. And wealthy retirees, the foundation of Florida's economic model, are quietly selling and leaving. This isn't a slowdown. This is the unraveling of Florida's entire housing blueprint, happening city by city with mathematical precision. Today, we reveal the 10 Florida cities where the collapse is already visible to anyone who knows how to read the signs, and why 2026 may be the breaking point Florida hoped would never come. Let's begin with number 10. Number 10, West Palm Beach. Palm Beach County's crown jewel stretches along Florida's Atlantic coast, where oceanfront mansions and gated communities have defined luxury living for decades. Million-dollar homes line streets named after coral reefs, their architecture promising permanent vacation lifestyle. But behind those perfectly painted facades, an insurance crisis is triggering the first domino in a catastrophic chain reaction. The brutal math behind those swaying palms tells a devastating story. According to MoneyGeek's 2024 analysis, Florida homeowners insurance now averages around $8,770 annually for standard $250,000 dwelling coverage. And in coastal Palm Beach County, many policies range from $9,000 to $11,000 or higher, depending on location and specific risk factors. Industry reports show premiums have jumped 40 to 50% over the past 18 months across much of South Florida. For families earning the county median income of roughly $87,000, an insurance payment approaching $10,000 annually consumes more than 11% of gross income before they've paid a single mortgage dollar. Property values reflect the mounting pressure. Zillow and Redfin data show homes across Palm Beach County experiencing significant softening, with many properties in certain communities now sitting 90 to 120 days on market. Far longer than the 30 to 45-day averages typical in 2021 to 2022, when homes moved quickly and bidding wars were common. Sellers who once expected multiple offers now face price reductions and extended listing periods. For families like the Rodriguezes, he's a firefighter earning around $72,000. She's a physical therapist making approximately $68,000. Their combined $140,000 should make homeownership comfortable by traditional standards. Instead, their $580,000 Wellington home requires roughly $3,200 monthly for mortgage payments, plus insurance that's climbed to $9,200 annually, and property taxes around $9,500. That's approximately $5,800 monthly just for housing, consuming close to 50% of their take-home pay after taxes. The financial stress is crushing them, and they're discovering they're far from alone. When insurance costs spike this dramatically, it creates cascading failures across the entire market. Buyers can't qualify for mortgages because their debt-to-income ratios explode beyond lending guidelines. Existing owners struggle to refinance. Cash buyers demand steep discounts to compensate for ongoing cost burdens. The whole system starts breaking down, piece by piece. And if West Palm Beach's insurance shock feels devastating, wait until you see what's happening with special assessments in our 9th city. Number 9. Boca Raton. South along the coast, Boca Raton's high-rise condos tower over pristine beaches, their glass facades reflecting azure waves and promising carefree coastal living. Retirees and professionals bought into these buildings expecting maintenance-free luxury. Instead, they're receiving the most financially devastating letters of their lives. Post-Surfside building inspections are revealing structural issues that associations deferred or ignored for decades. Concrete spalling, rebar corrosion, failing waterproofing, outdated electrical systems. The repair bills are astronomical. Real estate professionals and property managers across South Florida report numerous older coastal buildings facing special assessments ranging from $50,000 to $200,000 plus per unit for comprehensive structural work, with payment demanded immediately or financed at high interest rates. Picture a retiree couple living in a $420,000 two-bedroom condo they purchased in 2019. They're surviving on fixed income of roughly $5,800 monthly from Social Security and pension. Their monthly condo fee started at $650 when they bought. Today, it's approached $980 as insurance and maintenance costs have surged. Then comes the special assessment. Notice demanding $87,000 for critical structural repairs, money they simply don't have saved. Their options are horrifying. Take a high-interest loan they can't afford, attempt to sell in a market flooded with identical distressed units, or face foreclosure and lose everything they've built. What makes Boca's condo crisis particularly severe? These aren't isolated cases. Numerous older buildings constructed in the 1970s and 1980s need similar repairs simultaneously. The market floods with units from owners desperate to escape before assessments hit. Local MLS data shows prices cratering in affected buildings. In some cases, condos listed at $450,000 eventually sell for $380,000 if they sell at all. Many owners discover their units are literally unsellable because potential buyers see the assessment liability and walk away immediately. Insurance makes everything worse across the board. Condo association insurance for high-rise buildings has doubled or tripled in many cases, forcing HOA fees up another 30 to 40% on top of special assessments. Owners face the perfect storm. Skyrocketing monthly fees, massive special assessments, plummeting property values, and virtually no buyers willing to absorb the risk. The condo crisis isn't contained to Boca. It's spreading across Florida's coast. But the combination of insurance shock and infrastructure collapse reaches particularly severe form in our 8th city. Number 8, Tampa. Cross the state to Tampa Bay, where downtown high-rises reflect in the Hillsborough River and suburban developments sprawl toward distant horizons. This metro of 3.2 million people represents Florida's economic engine: finance, healthcare, technology, tourism converging in one regional powerhouse. Construction cranes dot the skyline, promising continued growth. But underneath that activity, multiple crisis factors are converging simultaneously in ways that threaten the entire regional housing market. Tampa's median home price, which peaked around $420,000 to $430,000 in mid-2023, according to various real estate tracking services, has softened to approximately $380,000 to $395,000 by late 2024, representing a decline of roughly 7 to 10%, depending on specific neighborhood and property type. While that might sound modest compared to 2008's eventual 50% crash, industry analysts warn this represents just the beginning. Insurance costs in Tampa Bay mirror Palm Beach's crisis, with many homeowners now paying $7,000 to $9,000 annually for standard coverage, plus another $2,000 to $3,000 for flood insurance in designated zones. The gap between what people earn and what homes cost has become nearly unbridgeable for middle-class families. Census data shows Tampa's median household income around $67,000 to $70,000. Using standard lending guidelines with current insurance costs factored in, that income realistically supports a maximum home price in the $270,000 to $290,000 range. But the median home costs significantly more, creating an affordability chasm that's swallowing traditional buyers. Consider the Johnson family in Brandon. They bought their $410,000 home in 2022 with a 6.5% mortgage rate, giving them roughly $2,100 monthly payment. Their insurance started at $4,800 at closing. Fast forward to their 2024 renewal. The bill came back at $7,800, a jaw-dropping 62% increase. Their escrow shortage letter demanded an extra $250 monthly. That puts them at approximately $2,350 for just mortgage and insurance before property taxes, HOA fees, or any maintenance costs. On their combined income of $118,000, they're stretched dangerously thin. Commercial real estate adds another troubling layer. Downtown Tampa's office vacancy has climbed above 17 to 19% as companies embrace permanent remote work. Those empty towers don't generate property tax revenue at the rates occupied buildings do, inevitably shifting more burden onto residential property owners over time. For many homeowners, especially recent buyers and non-homesteaded properties, property tax bills have increased 8 to 12% annually in certain neighborhoods, according to local property appraiser data, intensifying the insurance shock families are already struggling to absorb. The infrastructure collapse happening in our seventh city reveals yet another dimension of this unfolding crisis. Number 7. St. Petersburg. Across the Bay, St. Petersburg's waterfront parks and thriving arts district have made it one of Florida's most desirable cities for young professionals and active retirees alike. Population surged roughly 14% between 2010 and 2020 as people discovered its urban walkability and cultural amenities. But the infrastructure was built for a city of 250,000 residents, not the 380,000 plus living there now. And that mismatch is creating cascading problems that directly impact housing costs. The three bridges connecting St. Petersburg to Tampa, Howard Franklin, Courtney Campbell, and Gandy are overwhelmed with traffic during peak hours. Commute times have increased an estimated 25 to 30% over 5 years, according to regional transportation data. Water main breaks occur with increasing frequency as aging 70-year-old pipes strain under demand. The stormwater system, designed decades ago for smaller population and less development, can't handle flooding during heavy rain events. Streets flood regularly, not from hurricanes, but from afternoon thunderstorms that overwhelm outdated drainage. What families discover when they move to St. Petersburg is that the city's charm comes with a hidden cost structure, making homeownership increasingly unsustainable. For many homeowners, especially recent buyers or non-homesteaded properties, property taxes have climbed significantly, in some cases 20 to 25% over several years, as the city desperately tries to fund infrastructure upgrades and deferred maintenance. Special assessments for road improvements, stormwater management upgrades, and utility system repairs add thousands in annual costs that homeowners didn't budget for when they purchased. A typical family in the historic Kenwood neighborhood who bought their $380,000 bungalow in 2021, attracted by walkability and community character, now pays roughly $1,950 monthly for mortgage, $6,500 to $7,000 annually for insurance, $6,000 to $6,500 in property taxes, plus new special assessments totaling $1,500 to $2,000 annually for infrastructure improvements. Total housing cost approaches $4,600 to $4,900 monthly, extremely difficult to sustain on a combined household income of $105,000. The rental market offers no escape from rising costs. Average rent has jumped from around $1,650 in 2021 to $2,300 to $2,500 in 2024, according to rental market tracking services, representing roughly a 40 to 50% increase in just 3 years. For service workers, teachers, and young professionals, these rents consume 35 to 45% of gross income, making saving for down payments nearly impossible. St. Petersburg's infrastructure crisis reveals a broader truth. Florida's explosive growth outpaced the systems needed to support it, and homeowners are bearing the cost through ever-increasing taxes and assessments. But infrastructure stress pales beside the exodus happening in our sixth city. Number 6, Miami. Miami-Dade County, where Art Deco buildings line Ocean Drive and cruise ships dwarf downtown towers, has become ground zero for working-class displacement. This international gateway of 2.7 million people is experiencing an exodus that's fundamentally reshaping the county's demographics and threatening its long-term economic viability. The affordability mathematics are economically brutal. Zillow data shows Miami's median home price in the $575,000 to $625,000 range, depending on specific area and property type, while census data indicates median household income around $57,000 to $61,000. That ratio, roughly 10 to 1 price to income, is approximately twice as severe as comparable major metros. Dallas offers median homes around $350,000 with median income near $71,000. Atlanta provides homes around $385,000 with median income approximately $72,000. Miami's affordability crisis exists in a category by itself. What's happening behind those gleaming waterfront towers reveals a market that's bifurcated into two completely separate ecosystems. Luxury properties above $2 million continue transacting with international buyers, investors, and wealthy professionals. Everything below $800,000, the market segment where actual Miami residents earning local wages might realistically buy, has essentially frozen. Redfin and local MLS data show many mid-priced homes sitting 140 to 180 plus days in certain neighborhoods, with sellers reducing prices multiple times before eventually delisting. The market for regular homes where teachers, nurses, and police officers might afford to live has stopped functioning normally. For essential workers, Miami's cost structure creates impossible mathematics. Miami-Dade public school teachers earn an average salary around $56,000 to $60,000, according to district pay scales. Nurses at Jackson Memorial Hospital make approximately $68,000 to $75,000, depending on experience. Miami police officers average around $65,000 to $70,000. These are professionals every city needs to function, yet none of them can afford to live in Miami-Dade anymore without extreme financial stress or long commutes. Many are commuting from Broward or Palm Beach counties, spending 2 hours daily in traffic just to reach jobs in Miami. The rental market provides no viable alternative. Average rent for a two-bedroom apartment ranges from $2,700 to $3,000 monthly, representing $32,400 to $36,000 annually. On a teacher's $58,000 salary, that's 56 to 62% of gross income consumed by rent alone. Financial advisors traditionally recommend keeping housing costs to 28 to 30% of gross income. At Miami prices, that target is impossible for anyone earning less than roughly $110,000 to $120,000 annually. Population data confirms the exodus is real and accelerating. Miami-Dade County lost an estimated 85,000 to 90,000 plus residents between 2021 and 2023, according to census estimates. But if Miami's affordability crisis feels abstract, our fifth city makes climate reality undeniable and immediate. Number 5. Miami Beach. Miami Beach sits on a barrier island where Art Deco architecture meets pristine sand, where South Beach nightlife attracts millions of tourists annually. For decades, this represented the ultimate Florida fantasy, beachfront living with urban energy and international sophistication. But climate reality is making that fantasy increasingly expensive, and many scientists warn ultimately unsustainable over the coming decades. The city has invested over $500 million in pump systems designed to manage tidal flooding, yet king tides still flood streets with increasing regularity during seasonal peaks. Miami Beach famously raised roads and sidewalks in South Beach, creating landscapes where building entrances now sit below street level, a visible acknowledgement of rising water challenges. These aren't theoretical future risks discussed in climate models. Their current conditions making homeownership demonstrably riskier and more expensive every year. Insurance companies have figured this out faster than most homebuyers. Miami Beach properties face some of the highest insurance costs in the nation, according to industry data and local real estate professionals. Average homeowners' insurance in Miami Beach ranges from $10,000 to $13,000 plus annually for standard properties, with flood insurance adding another $3,000 to $4,000 for properties in designated zones. Combined, that's $13,000 to $17,000 annually just for insurance coverage, before property taxes, HOA fees, or mortgage payments. A family owning a $750,000 townhouse 3 blocks from the beach faces mathematics that simply don't pencil out by traditional affordability standards. Their 7% mortgage on $600,000 after 20% down payment costs approximately $3,990 monthly. Add roughly $14,000 to $15,000 annually for combined insurance, $1,167 to $1,250 monthly. $11,000 to $12,000 for property taxes, $917 to $1,000 monthly, and $400 to $500 for HOA fees. Total monthly housing cost, $6,474 to $7,740. Financial guidelines suggest housing shouldn't exceed 33% of gross income, meaning they'd need to earn $235,000 to $280,000 annually. Census data shows Miami Beach's median household income around $73,000 to $78,000. Property values are beginning to reflect climate risk pricing more aggressively. Local real estate professionals report that in some flood-prone or older buildings, waterfront properties that once commanded significant premiums now sit unsold as buyers increasingly internalize the reality of rising seas, strengthening storms, and insurance costs that climb every year. In certain cases, listings have fallen from $1.2 million to under $1 million, sometimes with still no serious buyers materializing. International investment that drove prices upward for years is showing signs of reversal. When foreign buyers from Latin America, Europe, and Asia decide climate risk makes Miami Beach a questionable long-term investment, that selling pressure will flood the market with inventory and potentially crash prices, leaving local owners holding properties worth less than outstanding mortgages. Miami Beach is the canary in the coal mine, showing early warning signs where climate risk is being visibly priced into real estate values. But climate risk remains somewhat theoretical compared to the physical devastation our fourth city continues experiencing. Number 4, Cape Coral. Southwest Florida's Lee County once promised affordable paradise, waterfront living without Miami prices, warm weather year-round, retirement dreams within reach for middle-class families. Cape Coral's extensive canal system provided boat access to the Gulf of Mexico. Yards featured tropical landscaping, and property values climbed steadily for 2 decades. Hurricane Ian, which made landfall in September 2022 as a Category 4 storm, shattered that promise in ways that continue reverberating through the housing market today. Picture Cape Coral before Ian struck. Suburban streets lined with single-family homes, peaceful canal communities where northern retirees sold homes for $400,000, purchased in Cape Coral for $300,000 to $320,000, and banked the difference for comfortable retirement income. The formula worked beautifully for years, until 150-plus miles per hour winds and catastrophic storm surge rewrote everything in a single afternoon. Ian killed 149 people across Florida, with Lee County suffering the highest death toll. But the insurance catastrophe that followed is destroying Southwest Florida's housing market more thoroughly than the hurricane itself. Homeowners filed billions in insurance claims, carriers hemorrhaged money, and multiple companies either exited Florida entirely or raised premiums 60 to 90% for properties that survived the storm. Cape Coral homeowners who paid $3,200 to $3,800 for insurance in 2021 now face annual bills of $7,500 to $9,500 plus in many cases, if they can secure coverage at all. For retirees on fixed income, the cost mathematics become unbearable. Jean and Robert Martinez retired to Cape Coral in 2015, purchasing a $245,000 home near the water with proceeds from selling their New Jersey home. They paid off the mortgage immediately. Their property taxes ran $3,100 annually. Insurance cost $2,400. They lived comfortably on $5,200 monthly income from Social Security and pension. Post-Ian, their insurance renewal came back at $8,100 annually. Their carrier then sent a non-renewal notice months later. The only alternative coverage available through Citizens Property Insurance, $11,700 annually. Their property taxes increased to $3,700 as the county raised assessments. Suddenly, their fixed income barely covers basic housing costs for a home they own outright. They're forced to consider selling, but many comparable homes in their neighborhood are worth $15,000 to $25,000 less than similar properties sold for several years ago. Population data confirms the exodus is real. Lee County lost an estimated 11,000 to 12,000 residents between 2022 and 2024, according to census estimates. The first sustained population decline since tracking began. Moving vans head north regularly, transporting belongings of families who've given up on Florida's paradise promise. The demographic shift is striking. Younger families with flexibility leave fastest, while elderly residents remain trapped by underwater mortgages, insufficient savings, or physical inability to relocate. Commercial corridors throughout Lee County show visible decline. Strip malls feature increasing vacancies. National chains consolidate locations. The economic vitality that originally attracted retirees deteriorates as the tax base shrinks. And our third city shows the deeply personal human cost of this collapse. Number 3, Fort Myers. Just south of Cape Coral, Fort Myers' historic downtown district suffered catastrophic flooding when Ian's massive storm surge pushed water blocks inland from the Caloosahatchee River. Properties that hadn't experienced significant flooding in 80-plus years sat under 3 feet of contaminated water for days. The cleanup cost millions individually and collectively, but the psychological and long-term financial damage cut even deeper. Homeowners who genuinely believed they were safe because they weren't located directly on the coast learned the hard way that storm surge doesn't respect outdated flood maps or previous historical patterns. Their insurance premiums exploded in renewal cycles, or coverage was canceled outright with little warning. Property values in many affected areas dropped as buyers began internalizing the true risk of Southwest Florida living in an era of strengthening hurricanes and rising seas. The Williams family represents thousands facing impossible financial choices. They purchased their $340,000 Fort Myers home in 2018, planning to age in place and enjoy retirement years in Florida sunshine. The neighborhood felt quiet, safe, affordable, seemingly perfect for their retirement vision. Ian flooded their home with 18 inches of water. Their insurance covered repairs, though barely. Then came the premium renewal, $9,200 annually, up from $3,800. 3 months later, their insurer sent a non-renewal notice. The only coverage they could secure through Citizens Property Insurance, $12,400 annually. On their combined Social Security and pension income of approximately $4,900 monthly, that insurance cost alone represents $1,033 monthly, roughly 21% of gross income just for insurance on a home they own free and clear. Add property taxes of $5,400 annually, $450 monthly, utilities averaging $280 monthly, and maintenance reserves of $200 monthly for a home approaching 40 years old. They're spending nearly $2,000 monthly on housing costs before food, healthcare, transportation, or any quality of life expenditures. Their retirement dream transformed into a financial nightmare. What makes Fort Myers' situation particularly tragic? Many residents are elderly, living on fixed incomes, and lack any financial flexibility to absorb these dramatic cost increases. They can't boost their income. Social Security cost of living adjustments don't remotely keep pace with Florida's housing cost inflation. They struggle to sell. The market floods with similar homes from other desperate trapped owners. They can't afford to relocate. Moving costs, security deposits, and establishing new households are prohibitive for retirees on fixed budgets. The market reflects this widespread desperation. In many Fort Myers neighborhoods, homes sell for 15 to 25% below peak values from 2021. A property purchased for $285,000 in 2019 might sell for $235,000 to $245,000 in 2024, if it sells at all. Owners needing to relocate for health reasons or family support often discover they're effectively underwater after accounting for selling costs, repairs, and closing expenses. Some simply walk away, accepting foreclosure and destroyed credit they spent lifetimes building. Fort Myers witnesses the systematic destruction of retirement security for middle-class Americans who followed all the traditional financial rules. But at least Fort Myers residents understood hurricane risk existed when they bought. Our second city represents families who thought they'd found safe refuge. Number 2, Jacksonville. Northeast Florida's Jacksonville sprawls across 747 square miles where the St. Johns River meets the Atlantic Ocean. For decades, this city represented affordable Florida living with genuine opportunity, no state income tax, reasonable home prices compared to South Florida, military job stability through multiple naval installations, and a growing financial services sector. Families fleeing expensive metros like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut relocated here, finding homes under $300,000 and decent schools without bankruptcy-inducing property taxes. That affordability narrative is unraveling faster than most residents realize, and new risks are emerging that weren't adequately factored into the pandemic buying frenzy. Jacksonville's housing market followed the familiar pattern. Prices surged roughly 45 to 50% between 2020 and 2023 as remote workers discovered they could own actual houses with yards for less than cramped apartments cost elsewhere. Median home prices climbed from around $260,000 in early 2020 to $380,000 to $395,000 by early 2023 in many tracking reports, pushing first-time buyers to increasingly distant suburbs and exurbs. What makes Jacksonville's developing crisis distinct? The affordability advantage that initially drove explosive growth is disappearing while new risks emerge that buyers didn't price into their decisions. Insurance costs are rising nearly as aggressively as South Florida, despite Jacksonville's historically lower hurricane frequency. Industry data shows average homeowners insurance in Duval County now costs $4,500 to $5,500 annually, depending on coverage and deductibles, roughly triple the national average of $1,600 to $1,700. For families who bought during the pandemic at 3% mortgage rates, that insurance represents a shock they didn't anticipate when running affordability calculators. Property taxes add mounting pressure through rapidly escalating assessments. A home assessed at $320,000 in 2021 might be reassessed at $400,000 to $420,000 in 2024, representing a 25 to 31% increase, translating directly to higher annual tax bills. For family budgets carefully constructed around specific monthly housing payments, these increases create genuine hardship. They can't refinance to lower rates because current rates are roughly double what they locked in. They're financially trapped, unable to escape rising costs. The employment picture adds uncertainty to supposedly stable military and financial services foundations. Yes, Jacksonville has Naval Air Station Jacksonville, Naval Station Mayport, and various defense contractor positions. But military pay scales are fixed and don't adjust for local housing inflation. A Navy E-5 with 6 years of service earns approximately $38,000 in base pay, with allowances potentially bringing total compensation to $60,000 to $68,000, depending on dependents. That income comfortably supported a $270,000 to $290,000 home purchase in 2019. But it doesn't stretch to cover a $390,000 home with $5,000 annual insurance in 2024. Corporate employers add to the uncertainty. Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, Fidelity, and Wells Fargo all maintain significant Jacksonville operations, but the financial services industry is consolidating operations and automating aggressively. Remote work proved many positions previously requiring physical Jacksonville offices can be performed from anywhere, eroding the city's competitive advantage. But the real emerging threat to Jacksonville, climate risk that many buyers underestimated during the surge, and our number one city proves even wealth provides no protection. Number 1, Naples. Picture Naples, Florida, rows of waterfront mansions glowing under Gulf sunsets, private marinas filled with multi-million-dollar yachts, and golf estates carved into manicured perfection. With one of the highest millionaire densities in the nation, Naples has always symbolized the belief that wealth equals safety. If anywhere was insulated from Florida's growing housing crisis, it was this city. But what almost nobody saw coming is now undeniable. Naples is showing severe structural and financial stress. And if the richest city in America can't escape what's coming, the middle class never stood a chance. The numbers behind the luxury lifestyle tell the real story. Local insurance professionals report standard homeowners premiums now running $12,000 to $18,000 per year, while waterfront estates routinely face $25,000, $40,000, even $60,000 to $80,000 annually for full wind and flood coverage. That's not a bill. It's the cost of a brand new luxury car every single year spent just on insurance. Then come the taxes and fees. A $3 million Naples home often carries $40,000 to $55,000 in property taxes, while HOA fees in premium communities range from $12,000 to over $30,000 annually. Before a mortgage payment even enters the picture, many owners now spend $70,000 to $110,000 per year simply to maintain their property's basic obligations. And the condo situation is even more alarming. Some older luxury waterfront buildings, particularly those built in the 1970s and 1980s, are issuing special assessments of $200,000, $300,000, even $400,000 plus per unit to meet post-Surfside structural, waterproofing, and reserve requirements. Owners who thought they bought into turnkey luxury communities are receiving financial shock letters large enough to purchase a second home. This is where the irony becomes impossible to ignore. The ultra-wealthy are leaving. People with the resources to absorb high costs are selling their Naples estates and relocating to states like the Carolinas, Tennessee, or back to the Northeast. These are individuals who could pay the bills, but increasingly question why they should. When multimillionaires decide Naples is financially irrational, that's not personal preference. It's a warning sign. The market is reacting accordingly. Properties listed at $5.2 million sit for 180 to 250 days and eventually sell for $4.0 to $4.3 million, often after multiple price reductions. Waterfront condos once priced at $2.8 million fall to the low $2 millions, sometimes still attracting no serious offers. A luxury market long considered bulletproof is showing what brokers privately call liquidity stress, a polite way of saying buyers have vanished at the high end. And behind all these shifts is a factor the wealthy pay close attention to. Climate risk is now being priced aggressively into Naples real estate. Insurance actuaries who use hurricane modeling, storm surge projections, and sea level forecasts aren't acting emotionally. When they set premiums at $40,000 to $80,000 annually for some waterfront properties, they're communicating that long-term risk has already changed materially. Savvy buyers interpret that signal instantly. The painful truth is this. Naples was supposed to be immune. Naples was supposed to be untouchable. Naples was supposed to be the place where money insulated you from Florida's biggest problems. Instead, it has become the clearest evidence that no amount of wealth can overcome an insurance system breaking down, climate pressures intensifying, and a cost structure that no longer makes financial sense, even for the rich. If Naples, the crown jewel, can't withstand what's coming, what realistic chance does any other Florida city have? Final take. From West Palm Beach's insurance apocalypse to Naples' billionaire exodus, you've just seen how every layer of Florida's housing system is breaking at the same time. Insurance is unaffordable. Taxes are accelerating. Climate shocks are now yearly events. Infrastructure is overwhelmed. And families, from entry-level buyers to wealthy retirees, are quietly fleeing because they can no longer justify the cost of staying. The warning signs were there for years. Insurance spikes, failing condo towers, rising sea levels, crippling special assessments, wage gaps that made home ownership mathematically impossible. But 2026 is the moment when all the hidden problems collide and denial becomes impossible. Here's the brutal truth. Florida's housing crisis won't hit evenly. Some cities will see slow, painful declines. Others will see sudden drops that erase years of equity in months. And the families who act early will avoid the worst of it, while those who wait may find themselves trapped in homes they can't sell, can't insure, and can't afford. If you're thinking about buying in Florida, be careful. If you already own a home here, watch your insurance renewals closely. And if you're considering leaving, the window to do so profitably is shrinking. This video isn't financial advice. It's a wake-up call. And if Naples, the richest city in America, can't survive this storm, what chance does anyone else have? Thanks for watching Uncover the Cities. If this deep dive opened your eyes, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more data-driven investigations into the cities shaping your financial future. We'll see you in the next one.